Today, I got asked a question about using mosquitoes as vaccines. So, we think about mosquitoes as the world's most dangerous animal, one that can spread many different infections to humans, including malaria, which has been a scourge of humanity for centuries and centuries or millennia, even. But there was actually something interesting that I had seen in an article in Nature about kind of a proof of concept of using mosquitoes to deliver vaccines, not to humans, but actually to bats. So flying vaccines. And I think the idea is that bats are major reservoirs for lots of viruses, from rabies to Ebola to Marburg to Nipah to Hendra to SARS-CoV-2 to MERS to SARS-1. There are a lot of viruses that have what we call spillover risk, that they can spill into other animals and can spill into humans. Could you vaccinate the reservoir to prevent that spillover risk? And it's a fascinating idea. And I think it's an advantageous way to kind of do what we call ecological vaccination. And it's not unprecedented. So, for example, in many parts of the United States, they put bait in the woods with rabies vaccine in it so that raccoons and skunks may eat it and then become vaccinated and decrease the spillover risk to domestic animals and to humans. So what happened in this study? They took a mosquito, Aedes aegypti, which is the same mosquito that spreads dengue, Zika, yellow fever, chikungunya, and they engineered a vaccine using a specific virus, vesicular stomatitis virus, and that's a vaccine platform. And they put that vaccine into mosquitoes who then went on to go bite bats. The vaccine virus replicates in the salivary glands of the mosquito. They give it to bats. Bats then get that vaccine in their blood. The bats made antibodies to the vaccine, rabies, and they, in lethal challenge models, were protected. So it does seem to work biologically. And you don't necessarily have to use mosquitoes. You could maybe have the bats drink out of certain water that has the vaccine as well, just like the raccoon rabies bait example. And it's something that's versatile, ecologically integrated. But I think the issue is that, how do you control this? How do you make this work? Do the mosquitoes actually bite the right bats? Remember, there's 1,500 species of bats. Are they biting the right ones? Are they just biting bats? Are they biting other things as well? Are you wasting some vaccine, or do other animal species have side effects from this? That's important to know. Can you actually target the mosquitoes? And do the bats that are vaccinated, do they stop shedding virus and then have less of a spillover risk? Does it actually translate into a clinical benefit, meaning less spillover of bat-borne viruses into humans, into domestic animals? So I think this is where you really have to wonder whether or not this is going to turn into something. But I think it's really fascinating. I think it's important to do this type of work. But it's also important to remember that there's always going to be some spillover risk in animal reservoirs that we're not going to be able to contain. And the key question is, are we prepared for those initial infections that occur in humans? And that's where zoonotic infection pandemic preparedness really has to focus, is once the spillover happens. But I do think doing this upstream is really fascinating work. And I think it would be good to use mosquitoes for something other than spreading disease. But spreading vaccines is one thing that they might be able to do. So interesting work.